After my husband's funeral, I attended my nephew's first birthday, and my sister declared, "My baby is your husband's son. So I deserve half of your $800,000 house." She even waived his will at me. I just said, "Oh really," while hiding my laughter. Because my husband. 3 months after I buried the love of my life, my own sister tried to steal half my home, claiming her baby was my late husband's child. What she didn't realize was that I knew the truth, a truth so outrageous, it almost made me laugh in her face. Main story *, my name is Bridget, and at 34, widowhood was a role I never imagined I'd play. Adam, my husband of 11 beautiful years, was just 36 when a sudden aneurysm ripped him from my world. We met 12 years ago at a charity auction for children with cancer. I was volunteering, arranging silent auction items, when he outbid everyone for a painting I'd been mesmerized by all night, a watercolor of the Boston skyline, vibrant oranges and purples bleeding into the harbor. He walked straight to me, that crinkling smile in his blue eyes, and handed it over. "I noticed you looking at this," he said softly. "I think it belongs with you." That was Adam. Thoughtful, observant, generous to a fault. I fell hard and fast. Our first date felt like a reunion, like we'd known each other forever. He was a brilliant corporate attorney, yet so humble, the kind of man who remembered the names of waitstaff and asked genuine questions about their lives. 8 months later, he proposed on the harbor, the actual skyline mirroring the painting that brought us together. Soon after our first anniversary, we bought our $800,000 Victorian home in Beacon Hill. It was a stretch, but Adam had just made partner, and my interior design career was taking off. The house had incredible bones, high ceilings, a small garden where I envisioned our future children playing. But those children never came. We tried for years, charting, planning, hoping. Then came the doctors, the tests, the 4 rounds of IVF that not only drained our savings, but utterly shattered our spirits. I can still feel the quiet, numb drive home after that last failed attempt, Adam's hand reaching across the console to grip mine. Neither of us spoke. We both knew that road was closed. "We can still have a beautiful life," Adam whispered that night on our porch swing. "You and me, that is enough." And he meant it. We slowly rebuilt our dreams. We traveled, poured ourselves into our careers, meticulously renovated our house, room by room, until it was the showcase I'd always dreamed of. Adam championed me when I launched my own design firm. Our life was full, rich, just different from our initial plans. My younger sister, Cassandra, always existed in the periphery of our happiness. For years my junior, she was the family's wild child, bouncing between jobs, volatile relationships. Our parents constantly worried about her, which somehow translated into endless excuses for her behavior and repeated financial bailouts. Cassandra and I had a complicated history. She was stunning, effortlessly charming, but there was always this undercurrent of competition from her side. If I achieved something, she needed to one-up me. When I started dating Adam, she suddenly had to date law students. When we bought our house, she complained for months about her apartment, angling for our parents to upgrade her. It was exhausting. But Adam, ever the peacemaker, encouraged me to maintain the relationship. "She's your only sister," he'd remind me. "Family is important." 2 years ago, Cassandra started dating Tyler, a bartender with rugged tattoos and a motorcycle our parents loathed. Their relationship was a volatile drama of passionate reconciliations and explosive breakups. Then the bombshell, her pregnancy announcement at Thanksgiving dinner, the year before Adam died. It was unexpected, to say the least. While I had diligently tried to fulfill every societal expectation, here she was, announcing her accidental pregnancy with theatrical tears and declarations about the miracle of life. A familiar pang of jealousy hit me. After all our heartache, she'd effortlessly achieved what we desperately wanted. But I pushed it down. I genuinely wanted to be a good aunt. Lucas was born a healthy 8 pounds, 4 ounces. I was there at the hospital, with flowers and a handmade blanket I'd spent months knitting. Cassandra seemed overwhelmed by motherhood, often calling me in tears about colic or exhaustion. I stepped in, watching Lucas overnight so she could sleep. Adam, I noticed, was less involved than I was. In retrospect, I rationalized it as his way of protecting himself from the pain of seeing a baby that wasn't ours. He was always kind when Cassandra brought Lucas over, but he maintained a certain distance that I never questioned at the time. Then came that terrible Tuesday morning. Adam complained of a headache before leaving for work. I urged him to stay home, but he had an important client meeting. Just a migraine, he insisted, kissing me goodbye. I'll call you after the meeting. That call never came. Instead, I got one from the hospital. By the time I arrived, he was already gone. A brain aneurysm. They said nothing could have been done. He was 36. The next days blurred into a haze of arrangements and crushing grief. Cassandra was strangely absent, sending texts claiming Lucas was sick or she couldn't find a babysitter. When she did appear at the funeral, she stayed briefly, keeping to herself, leaving before the reception. I was too numb to think much of it then. Midway subscribe line asterisk if you've ever felt the sting of betrayal or the ache of a broken heart, you know how hard it is to pick up the pieces. And if you're still with me, still wondering how anyone could survive something like this, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss how this story unfolds. 1 week after we laid Adam to rest, Lucas's first birthday arrived. The last thing I wanted was a children's party, but family obligations pulled at me. Adam would want you to go, my mother insisted. He always said, family comes first. So, I found myself driving to Cassandra's small rental house, a wrapped gift on the passenger seat, dark circles under my eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. I'd barely slept, spending nights staring at Adam's empty side of the bed, reaching for a warmth that was no longer there. I parked, took several deep breaths, and headed inside. No one should have to fake happiness so soon after losing their husband, but I plastered on a smile. Cassandra's friend, Jenna, opened the door, her eyes widening slightly. "Oh, Bridget, you made it," she said, her voice oddly strained. Whispers silenced as I passed a group in the kitchen, their eyes following me. In the backyard, my parents looked uncomfortable at a picnic table. My father rushed to embrace me, relief washing over his face. "We weren't sure you'd come." After 30 awkward minutes, accepting condolences and deflecting questions about my grief, Cassandra emerged, carrying Lucas on her hip. She wore a new dress, her hair freshly highlighted. Lucas, adorable in a button-up and bow tie, kicked with excitement. Cassandra, energized and almost giddy, barely acknowledged me. She tapped a spoon against her cup, calling for attention. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice carrying. "This past year has been full of surprises and challenges, as many of you know." Guests exchanged glances. My mother suddenly became fascinated with her shoes. "I've been keeping a secret," Cassandra continued, placing a hand on Lucas's head, one that I can no longer hide, especially after recent events. A chill ran down my spine. Something was terribly wrong. "Lucas is not Tyler's son," she announced, her eyes finding mine across the yard. "He is Adam's." The world seemed to stop. I heard gasps, felt my father stiffen beside me, but it was all background noise to the rushing in my ears. "Bridget's husband and I had a brief affair 2 years ago," Cassandra continued, her voice steady, rehearsed. "It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. We never meant to hurt anyone, but these things happen." I stood frozen, unable to process it. My sister, claiming she'd slept with my husband. Her son, my nephew, Adam's child. It was so absurd I almost laughed out loud. Cassandra wasn't finished. She pulled a folded document from her purse. Adam knew the truth about Lucas. Before he died, he updated his will. She held up the paper. He wanted his son to be provided for. "This will states that half of the house Adam and Bridget owned should go to Lucas as his biological child." Every eye in the yard turned to me, pity, morbid curiosity, discomfort. My parents looked stricken. And then, to everyone's surprise, including my own, a smile tugged at my lips. Not a happy smile, but the kind that comes when something is so outrageously false it becomes almost comical. I pressed my lips together, fighting the inappropriate laughter bubbling up inside me. Oh, I see, I said finally, my voice calm and even. I took a sip of water, buying time to suppress the urge to laugh in her face. May I see this will, Cassandra? Her confident expression faltered. She clearly hadn't expected this. Slowly, she walked over and handed me the document, a typed page with what appeared to be Adam's signature. I scanned it quickly, noting the inconsistencies immediately. The formal language was all wrong, nothing like Adam's legal documents. And the signature, while similar, was clearly forged. The connecting stroke between the A and D was off, the final flourish too pronounced. I carefully folded the paper and handed it back. Thank you for sharing this with me. I think I need to go now. That's it? Cassandra asked, confusion evident. You're not going to say anything else? Not right now, I replied calmly, gathering my purse. This is Lucas's day. We can discuss this privately later. I said goodbye to my shell-shocked parents, promising to call. As I walked to my car, I heard the murmurs, the shattered party atmosphere. Once inside, safely out of view, I finally let out the laugh. It started small, then grew until tears streamed down my face. Not tears of joy, but a strange, volatile mix of grief, anger, and incredulous disbelief at my sister's audacity. Because there was something Cassandra did not know. Something Adam and I had never shared with anyone. Something that made her elaborate lie not just hurtful, but utterly, biologically impossible. The truth about Adam and Cassandra's history began 3 years ago, long before Lucas was even conceived. We'd invited my sister over for dinner to celebrate her new job, her longest employment to date. Adam had made his famous lasagna, and we'd opened a good bottle of wine. It was a pleasant evening until I excused myself to take a work call from a client having a design emergency. The call took nearly 20 minutes. When I returned, the atmosphere had shifted. Adam looked uncomfortable, and Cassandra was sitting much closer to him, her hand on his arm, laughing at something I hadn't heard. I thought nothing of it then. Cassandra had always been affectionate, and the wine flowed freely. But later that night, as we got ready for bed, Adam seemed troubled. There's something I need to tell you, he said, sitting on the edge of our bed. And I don't want it to cause problems between you and your sister, but I also don't want to keep secrets from you. He explained that while I was on the phone, Cassandra had made a pass at him, inappropriate comments about how lucky I was, a suggestion that he deserved someone who truly appreciated him. When he'd rebuffed her, she laughed it off as a joke. I was hurt, but not entirely surprised. Cassandra always pushed boundaries. We decided to let it go as an isolated incident, fueled by wine and her usual competitive nature. But it wasn't isolated. Over the next few months, Cassandra found ways to touch Adam when I wasn't looking, sent texts that walked the line between friendly and flirtatious, and once showed up at his office uninvited asking him to lunch. Each time, Adam gently but firmly maintained boundaries and told me immediately. After the office incident, we confronted my parents. It didn't go well. They suggested Adam was misinterpreting friendly gestures, that Cassandra just looked up to him. My mother, with good intentions but terrible judgment, even suggested Adam was flattered and exaggerating. That night, Adam and I made a decision. We would create distance without causing a family rift. We declined invitations, made sure we were never alone with her, and Adam blocked her number after a particularly suggestive late-night message. Then came the medical issue that changed everything. Adam had been experiencing pain for weeks before finally seeing a urologist. The diagnosis was a varicocele, an enlargement of veins requiring surgery. The procedure went well, but there was a complication. The doctor recommended a vasectomy during the same surgery, due to the extensive nature of the varicose veins and potential recurrence. It was a difficult decision, especially given our past fertility struggles, but we agreed it was the right choice for Adam's health. The vasectomy was performed 3 years ago, 2 years before Lucas was conceived. We kept this medical information private. Even our parents didn't know. After years of invasive questions about our childless status, we had learned to protect our privacy around reproductive issues. The only people who knew were Adam, myself, and Adam's doctors. After the surgery, as Adam was recovering, he made a prediction that seemed paranoid at the time. "Cassandra isn't done," he'd said, sitting in our garden with an ice pack discreetly positioned. "I have a feeling she might try something more drastic one day." I laughed it off, but Adam was serious. The next week, he scheduled an appointment with our family attorney, James Wilson. I went with him, listening as Adam detailed Cassandra's behavior and his recent medical procedure. James recommended documenting everything: the unwanted advances, the medical records confirming the vasectomy, even text messages and emails from Cassandra. "You never know what might become relevant," James advised. "Better to have documentation and never need it than wish you had it later." We followed his advice, creating a file of everything. Adam also updated his will through official channels, making sure everything would come to me. James kept copies, and we placed the originals in a safety deposit box. "Just in case," Adam had said, though I plan to be around to deal with any of Cassandra's drama for at least another 50 years. The morning after Lucas's birthday party, I drove straight to the bank. The manager, who had known Adam and me for years, expressed condolences as he led me to the vault. I sat alone in the small viewing room and opened the box Adam and I had filled with what he jokingly called our disaster preparation kit. Inside was exactly what I needed: Adam's legitimate will, notarized and properly executed, leaving everything to me, medical records detailing his vasectomy 3 years prior, making it biologically impossible for him to be Lucas's father, a journal Adam had kept, documenting every inappropriate interaction with Cassandra, printed copies of text messages she'd sent him, a letter from our attorney verifying his legitimate will, and at the bottom, a sealed envelope with my name in Adam's familiar handwriting. With trembling fingers, I opened it. "My dearest Bridget, if you are reading this, something has happened to me and you have needed to access these documents. I hope it is many years from now when we are old and gray and Cassandra's antics are nothing but a distant memory we laugh about. But if not, if the worst has happened and she has tried to hurt you in my absence, please know that I tried to prepare for every possibility. Use these documents to protect yourself. I know how much you value family, how loyal you are to those you love. But you deserve to be protected from those who would take advantage of that beautiful heart of yours. I love you beyond words, beyond time. Whatever happens, know that, Adam." Tears streamed down my face. His love, his foresight, his protection reached out to me even from beyond the grave. My practical, thoughtful husband had anticipated this. Not the specific scenario, perhaps, but the possibility that Cassandra might try to use his death to her advantage. I carefully returned everything to the box except what I needed: copies of the medical records, the legitimate will, and selected journal entries. Then I called James Wilson and scheduled an appointment for that afternoon. James Wilson's law office, a converted brownstone in downtown Boston, exuded old money and discretion. James, in his 60s with silver hair, stood when I entered. "Bridget," he said, embracing me. I was devastated to hear about Adam. He was one of the good ones. He was, I agreed, my voice catching. And it seems he was also right about preparing for the worst with my sister. I explained what happened, showing him Cassandra's forged will. James examined it. "This is an amateurish forgery," he said, concerned. "The language is all wrong, and the signature would never stand up to expert analysis. But the fact that she created this at all is deeply troubling." I showed him the documents from the safety deposit box. Adam was nothing if not thorough, James said, reviewing them. These medical records alone disprove her claim about Lucas's paternity. The vasectomy was performed 2 years before the child was conceived. It is biologically impossible for Adam to be the father. "What should I do?" I asked. "I don't want to humiliate her publicly, but I can't let her take half of our home based on a lie." James leaned back. "First, we need more information. I recommend hiring a private investigator. There's likely a motivation beyond simple cruelty here. People rarely attempt fraud of this nature without financial pressure." He recommended Frank Delaney, a former police detective. I agreed, and James made the call. Frank arrived an hour later, a stocky man with a Boston accent. He took detailed notes. "My preliminary focus will be on her financial situation and relationship with the child's actual father. Is there anything else you can tell me about him?" I shared what little I knew about Tyler, noting he wasn't at the party. Frank nodded. Good starting point. I'll be in touch. 3 days later, Frank called for a meeting at James's office. Mrs. Preston, Frank began, I've uncovered some concerning information. Cassandra was in dire financial straits. Over $75,000 in debt from credit cards, personal loans, and medical bills for Lucas, who'd needed heart surgery after birth. Her credit score was abysmal. She's also facing eviction, Frank continued, sliding a document across the table. She has until the end of the month to pay 4 months of back rent or vacate. As for Tyler, he'd abandoned Cassandra and Lucas shortly after the birth, moving to Seattle with a new girlfriend. He was paying a minimal $200 a month in child support, irregularly at that. I also found these, Frank said, producing printouts of text messages. Cassandra had been telling friends about her plans for weeks. They were messages between her and Jenna, the friend who'd opened the door at the party. The texts were damning. Adam's death is terrible, but maybe it's finally my chance to get what I deserve. That house is worth at least $800,000 now. If I play this right, I'll have a nice nest egg for Lucas and me. The will is almost ready. My friend Dave is good with Photoshop and found a sample of Adam's signature online from some charity auction. It looks totally legit. Bridget has always been the golden child. Time for me to get my share. She got 11 years with a great guy. The least she can do is share the wealth now that he's gone. I felt physically ill. This wasn't just opportunism, it was premeditated fraud, designed to capitalize on my deepest grief. There's more, Frank added gently. Tyler Martin, the actual father, has a history of domestic violence charges and a warrant out for unpaid child support for another child in New Hampshire. I sat in stunned silence. My sister wasn't just desperate, she was willing to destroy Adam's reputation and our marriage, and her choices had put Lucas in a potentially dangerous situation. What do I do with all this? I asked, looking between James and Frank. I can't just expose all of this publicly. Lucas is innocent in all of this. He's still my nephew. James removed his glasses. You have several options, Bridget. We could file charges against Cassandra for attempted fraud and forgery. That would likely result in criminal penalties, possibly even jail time. Or, he continued, seeing my distress, we could handle this privately. Confront her with the evidence, require her to retract her claims, and potentially work out an arrangement that protects both you and the child. I left the meeting with a heavy heart and a folder full of evidence. That evening, I called my therapist, Dr. Laurelchin, and scheduled an emergency session. In her calm, plant-filled office, I unloaded everything. I'm so angry I can barely see straight, I admitted. But Lucas is just a baby. None of this is his fault. And despite everything, Cassandra is still my sister. Dr. Chin listened patiently. It sounds like this pattern of competition and manipulation has existed since childhood, she observed. The current situation is an escalation, not an anomaly. Compassion does not mean allowing yourself to be victimized. You can be kind while still establishing firm boundaries and consequences. After much reflection, I decided I would confront Cassandra privately with all the evidence, offering her a choice: face potential legal consequences or accept a compromise that would provide for Lucas while demanding accountability from her. With renewed determination, I called Cassandra the next morning. We need to talk about the will, I said. Can you come to my house tomorrow afternoon? Just, Lucas, I knew you'd come around, she replied, sounding smugly satisfied. I'll be there at 2. I spent the morning preparing, arranging documents, and setting up recording devices on James's advice. Massachusetts is a 2-party consent state, so I had to ask her permission. At precisely 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath. Cassandra stood on the porch, looking polished, confident. Come in, I said, leading her to the living room. I hope you don't mind if we record our conversation. It seems prudent given the legal nature of what we're discussing. Cassandra hesitated briefly, then nodded. Sure, whatever makes you comfortable, though I think this can be pretty straightforward. The will is clear. I turned on the recorder, stating the date, time, and her consent. Then I sat back, studying her face. Before we discuss the will, I'd like to understand exactly what you're claiming happened between you and Adam. Cassandra launched into a well-rehearsed story about a supposed affair 2 years ago. They'd connected during a difficult period in my marriage, meeting several times at the Mandarin Oriental downtown. Adam had confessed his unhappiness, and Lucas was conceived during these encounters. He always meant to tell you, she said, her eyes wide with practiced sincerity. But then Lucas was born with a heart condition, and he didn't want to add stress. He promised he would provide for his son, though. I listened without interrupting, noting the inconsistencies. When she finished, I began asking questions. Which hotel did you meet at? The Mandarin Oriental, she replied quickly. And what room, do you remember? She faltered. It was on a high floor. I don't recall the exact number. What days of the week did you usually meet? Tuesdays? Sometimes Thursdays, when he told you he was working late. I continued, with increasingly specific questions. What did Adam typically order from room service? What side of the bed did he prefer? Did he shower before or after? Details only someone who had actually been intimate with Adam would know. Cassandra grew increasingly flustered, her answers vague and contradictory. Why does any of this matter? She finally snapped. The point is that Lucas is Adam's son, and the will proves Adam wanted to provide for him. Actually, I said calmly, opening my folder, both of those claims are demonstrably false. I placed the medical records on the table. 2 years before Lucas was conceived, Adam had a vasectomy following surgery for a varicocele. It was completely successful, confirmed by follow-up tests. It was physically impossible for him to father a child after that procedure. Cassandra's face drained of color. She picked up the records with trembling hands. These could be faked, she said weakly. They're not, I replied. And Adam's doctor is prepared to testify to their authenticity if necessary. But that's just the beginning. Next, I produced the legitimate will, notarized and filed. This is Adam's actual will, prepared by James Wilson and witnessed by 2 partners at his firm. As you can see, it leaves everything to me, with no mention of Lucas. Cassandra's confidence visibly crumbled, but she attempted to rally. He must have changed it after this was drawn up. The will I have is more recent. The will you have, I said evenly, is a forgery. A poor one, I might add. James has already identified multiple legal inconsistencies in the language, and the signature is clearly fake. Creating a fraudulent will is a felony in Massachusetts, punishable by up to 5 years in prison. I continued methodically, presenting Adam's journal documenting her inappropriate advances, the text messages between her and Jenna, and finally, Frank's report detailing her financial troubles, eviction notice, and Tyler's abandonment. We know everything, Cassandra, I said, as she sat in stunned silence. The question now is what happens next. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then, to my surprise, she began to cry. Not the theatrical tears I'd seen her use to manipulate our parents, but deep, body-racking sobs. I didn't know what else to do, she finally said, between gasps. I'm going to be homeless. Lucas and I will be out on the street in 2 weeks. Tyler left us with nothing. The medical bills just keep coming. I thought if I could just get some money from the house, so you decided to destroy Adam's reputation. I asked, my voice hardening. To tell everyone he cheated on me? To forge legal documents? I was desperate, she shouted, her sadness turning to anger. You have everything. This big house, a successful business, everyone's respect. What do I have? A baby with a heart condition, $75,000 in debt, and an eviction notice. You try making good decisions in that situation. Her outburst hung in the air. The raw honesty of it, stripped of manipulation, reached something in me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps understanding. Lucas is Tyler's son, isn't he? I asked, more gently. She nodded, wiping her eyes. Yes. Adam never touched me. Not like that. I did try with him years ago. He always shut me down immediately. He was annoyingly loyal to you. And the will. My friend Dave helped me create it. He does graphic design and thought it would be easy to fake a signature. I was going to use it to pressure you into giving me money. I never thought you would actually look into it so thoroughly. I turned off the recorder and sat back, considering my next move. Cassandra watched me nervously, clearly expecting the worst. I could press charges, I said finally. What you did was illegal, not to mention cruel and calculated. She nodded miserably. I know. But that would hurt Lucas, I continued. And despite everything, he is my nephew. I love him. I leaned forward, making sure she was looking directly at me. So, here's what's going to happen. You are going to tell everyone the truth, that you lied about the affair, that Lucas is not Adam's son, and that you forged the will. You will apologize publicly to me and to Adam's memory. And then, she asked, her voice small. We'll still be evicted. I'm not finished, I said. In exchange for your full confession and a legal agreement never to attempt anything like this again, I will help you and Lucas. Not by giving you half my house, but by setting up a trust fund for Lucas's education and medical needs, and helping you find stable housing. Her eyes widened. Why would you do that after what I did? Not for you, I said honestly. For Lucas, and because Adam would want me to help his nephew, even if that nephew's mother tried to destroy his reputation. There will be conditions, I continued. You will enter therapy and financial counseling. You will maintain steady employment, and you will allow me to be part of Lucas's life to ensure he is being properly cared for. If you violate any of these conditions, the support stops immediately. Cassandra was quiet for a long moment. I don't deserve your help, she finally said. No, I agreed, you don't. But Lucas deserves a stable home and medical care, and I deserve to have my husband's memory untarnished. This solution gives us both what we need. After further discussion, Cassandra agreed. We would meet with James the next day to formalize the agreement, and she would make her public confession at a family dinner the following weekend. As I showed her out, she paused at the door. I really am sorry, Bridget. I've been jealous of you my whole life. Everything always seemed to come so easily to you. Nothing about my life has been easy, I replied. You just never bothered to look past the surface. Maybe it's time you started. The family dinner I arranged for Saturday evening was tense from the start. My parents arrived early, my mother bringing her signature lasagna as a peace offering. I don't know what this is about, she said. But Cassandra has been calling us in tears saying you're forcing her to come to some sort of family meeting. Just wait until everyone is here, I replied. This needs to be addressed once, with everyone present. By 7, we were all seated. James had advised me to record this conversation as well, and a small recorder sat in the center of the table. Thank you all for coming, I began, after explaining the recording. I've asked Cassandra to share some important information with you. Cassandra, pale and uncomfortable, her usual confidence nowhere to be seen, stared down at her plate. I lied about Lucas being Adam's son, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Adam and I never had an affair. Lucas is Tyler's child, and I forged the will I showed at the birthday party. My parents stared in shock. But why would you do such a thing? My father demanded. Do you have any idea what that claim did to your sister? To Adam's reputation. Cassandra explained her desperate financial situation, her voice gaining strength as she detailed the mounting debts, Tyler's abandonment, and the eviction notice. As she spoke, I watched my mother's expression shift from shock to sympathy. Oh, honey, she said when Cassandra finished. Why didn't you just come to us for help? You didn't need to make up such terrible lies. Would you have given me $400,000? Cassandra asked bluntly. Because that's what I would have gotten if my plan had worked. Half the value of Bridget's house. Of course we couldn't give you that kind of money, my father said. But we could have helped with the rent, at least temporarily. Instead, you chose to try to defraud your own sister while she was grieving her husband. I know it was wrong, Cassandra admitted. Bridget has already made that abundantly clear. She has the evidence to press charges against me if she wanted to. My mother turned to me in alarm. You wouldn't do that to your own sister, would you, Bridget? I felt a flash of frustration at her immediate defense of Cassandra. Even now, I said firmly. What she did was not just immoral, but illegal. Forgery and fraud are felonies. But she's family, my mother insisted. And she has Lucas to think about. I am family, too, I replied, my voice rising slightly. Your daughter, too, the one who just lost her husband and then had to defend his memory against false accusations of infidelity. Where was your concern for me in all this? My father shifted in his seat. Of course we care about you, Bridget, but Cassandra has always needed more help, more guidance. And whose fault is that? I asked. You have been bailing her out of her poor decisions her entire life. Maybe if you had let her face consequences occasionally, she would not have escalated to criminal behavior. My mother gasped. That's hardly fair, Bridget. We've always treated you girls equally. Cassandra surprisingly shook her head. No, Mom, you haven't. Bridget is right. You always made excuses for me. Always found ways to fix my mistakes. It didn't help me. It just made me think I could do whatever I wanted without consequences. My parents looked stunned. For perhaps the first time, Cassandra was taking responsibility. So, what happens now? My father asked, looking between us. Is Cassandra going to jail? No, I said. I have decided not to press charges under certain conditions. I outlined the agreement Cassandra and I had reached, the trust fund for Lucas, the therapy and financial counseling, the stable employment condition. That's very generous, my father said, relieved. It's more than generous, Cassandra agreed quietly. It's more than I deserve. My mother said, brightening, this is all working out for the best. Cassandra has apologized. Bridget is helping with Lucas, and we can put this ugly business behind us. It's not that simple, Mom, I said firmly. Trust has been broken here. The healing will take time, if it happens at all. And there need to be boundaries going forward. What kind of boundaries? She asked, worried. For one thing, I need you both to stop enabling Cassandra's behavior. No more bailouts, no more excuses. She needs to stand on her own feet with appropriate support that does not perpetuate dependency. My father nodded slowly. That seems reasonable. And I need you to respect that my relationship with Cassandra will be different now. I am involved in Lucas's life because I love him and want the best for him. But Cassandra and I will not be close the way we once were. At least not for a long time. My mother looked distressed. But we're family. We need to stick together, especially now. Being family does not mean tolerating abuse, Mom, I said gently. What Cassandra did was abusive. She tried to use my grief to manipulate me, to take advantage of me at my most vulnerable. That has consequences, even within a family. The remainder of dinner was subdued. When they left, my father hugged me tightly, whispering, I'm proud of you, Bridget. Adam would be too. My mother hugged me as well, but her eyes were sad, already mourning the idealized family dynamic she had always pretended we had. Cassandra was the last to leave. At the door, she hesitated. I really am sorry, she said again. Not just for the will and the lies, but for everything. For the years of competition and jealousy, for not being the sister you deserved. I know, I replied. And I hope the therapy helps you understand why you made these choices. Lucas deserves a mother who is emotionally healthy and honest. Do you think you'll ever forgive me? She asked. I considered the question carefully. I don't know, I answered truthfully. But I am willing to see where this new path takes us. For Lucas's sake, and maybe someday for ours too. Ending * 1 year after Adam's death, I stood in our garden, watching the spring bulbs push through the soil. The daffodils Adam had planted the previous fall were blooming, a riot of yellow against the newly green lawn. I felt a bittersweet ache seeing them, knowing he had put them in the ground with hopes of seeing them bloom. So much had changed. The trust fund for Lucas was established, already helping with his ongoing medical needs. His heart condition, while requiring monitoring, was responding well, and he was growing into a cheerful, curious toddler. Cassandra had surprised everyone by truly embracing the conditions of our agreement. 6 months of therapy had helped her recognize patterns of behavior stemming from childhood, the constant need to compete with me, the self-sabotage that had characterized many of her decisions. She had found steady employment as an office manager at a dental practice, a job that provided stability and benefits. Our relationship remained formal but cordial. I saw Lucas regularly, taking him to the park or the children's museum. Cassandra and I didn't pretend to be close, but we had found a way to coexist peacefully for Lucas's sake. My parents had struggled initially with the new boundaries I had established, but over time, they too had adjusted, learning to support Cassandra without enabling her dependency. As for me, The grief support group I had joined shortly after Adam's death had become a lifeline. 12 strangers bound together by loss had become friends, understanding each other in ways that even well-meaning family and friends could not. 3 months after the confrontation with Cassandra, I had established the Adam Preston Foundation for Legal Education, providing scholarships to students from underprivileged backgrounds interested in corporate law. It gave me purpose to see Adam's legacy continuing. Old friends had stepped up. Adam's law partners checked in regularly. My college roommate flew in monthly. And then there was Michael. I met him at a fundraiser for the foundation 6 months after Adam died. He was a professor of ethics at Boston University, thoughtful and kind, with a quiet sense of humor that reminded me of Adam in some ways. We started as friends, sharing coffee after foundation meetings, then gradually transitioned to occasional dinners. It was different than what I had with Adam, as it should be. Michael understood that Adam would always be part of my life, that loving again did not mean replacing what came before. We were taking things slowly, both of us cautious, but hopeful. Standing in the garden that spring morning, I reflected on everything Adam had taught me, not just during our years together, but even after he was gone. His foresight in preparing those documents had protected me when I was at my most vulnerable. His journal entries had validated my experiences with Cassandra when my own parents tried to dismiss them. His love continued to shield me even in his absence. I had learned difficult lessons through this ordeal, that family relationships need clear boundaries to remain healthy, that documentation is not just a legal precaution, but sometimes an emotional necessity. That forgiveness does not have to mean forgetting or allowing harmful patterns to continue. And that sometimes, the people we expect to protect us are the ones we need protection from. But I had also learned about my own strength. I had faced Cassandra's betrayal, navigated the legal complexities, and made difficult decisions about how to move forward, all while processing the devastating loss of my husband. I had found a way to honor Adam's memory while beginning to build a new life for myself. The daffodils swayed in the spring breeze, resilient after the long winter. I thought about how grief is like that, too. Not a straight line, but a series of seasons, each bringing its own challenges and unexpected beauties. I was not the same person I had been before Adam died, before Cassandra's betrayal. I was stronger in some ways, more cautious in others, but ultimately more authentic in how I approached relationships and boundaries. Sometimes the most painful betrayals force us to find strength we never knew we had, I said softly to the garden Adam had loved. You couldn't have known what would happen after you were gone. But somehow, you prepared me to face it. And in that way, your love protects me still. As I turned to go back inside, I felt a sense of peace that had been absent for so long. Not because the grief was gone, it never would be completely, but because I had found a way to carry it alongside hope for the future. Adam had given me that gift, teaching me that love endures even when the person is gone, that preparation and honesty are acts of profound caring. Call to action. CTA, if there is one thing I would share with anyone facing betrayal within their family, it is this. Protect yourself with both documentation and boundaries. The people who truly love you will respect those boundaries, and the ones who don't were never safe for you to begin with. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to choose between family loyalty and protecting yourself? How did you navigate those impossible boundaries? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to hear from you.